Members, we are going to take this time to work down our file with those items that we have waived presentations. I don't see any other members, and we're waiting on Senator Bell to present on his extraordinary session item. So we're going to move to item 33, members. That is Senator Quirk's item, AB 33, witnesses in support, witnesses in opposition, finance.
The Department of Finance is opposed to this bill. The agencies comprising the council will need varying levels of resources to support the required activities, and the bill does not include an appropriation to support the council's activities despite its 2016 timeframe. The level of resources the ARB will need depends on what it takes to support the public meetings and the analytical needs of the council. Redirecting positions to the council support will decrease staff availability to develop the 2018-19 scoping plan, as well as the state's commitment to meet the requirements of the Federal Clean Power Plant Rule 111D, which is expected to be released in August of 2016. The Energy Commission estimates a need for 3 to 6 positions and $500,000 to $1 million on a one-time basis for the bill.
Thank you. Questions or comments from committee? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, we'll move this item to suspense file. Senator Bell, are you prepared to take up your item? Members, we're going to move back to the second extraordinary session to hear SB X210 by Senator Bell. Senator Bell, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking this bill up. This is California enacted in 2003. The Cigarette and Tobacco Products Licensing Act established a statewide licensing program administered by the Board of Equalization. And the act was established to reduce untaxed distributions and the illegal sales of cigarettes and tobacco products. Now, under the act, the tobacco retailers must pay a one-time fee of $100 each location they sell cigarettes or tobacco products. Now, the license is valid for 1 year and must be renewed annually. Now, when they renew it, they don't pay any more fees. So it's a one-time fee, but then they have to go through a renewal process every year, but they don't pay a fee when they renew. Tobacco distributors and wholesalers instead also pay an annual licensing fee of $1,000. So tobacco retailers pay an annual fee. Now, the current licensing structure does not generate, as you can expect, does not generate the necessary revenue to cover the administrative cost associated with the licensing program. And both the LAO and the Board of Equalization have published reports that outline the inadequate funding of the licensing program. The reports highlighted the inadequate funding of the program can lead to a lack of field enforcement or reduction in compliance staff, potentially leading to further decreases in funding. Now, to make up the shortfall, how do they do that? Well, they take money from special funds that support programs for childhood development, tobacco education and prevention, tobacco-related disease and research, healthcare for low-income breast cancer awareness programs, and are charging part of the administrative costs of licensing these retailers to those programs. Those programs are paying the majority of cost they're taking that money away from those programs to pay for the majority of the costs of administrating these programs. To remedy a problem we have here is pretty simple. The bill will eliminate the need to divert the tobacco excise taxes from these programs to pay for the deficit by creating this, instead of having a one-time fee of $100, create a annual fee of $265, which is based on cost recovery. It's cost recovery only. I point that out to people. It's to recover costs, not to go above recovering costs. And increase the tobacco wholesalers and distributors from 1,000 to 1,200. That's all the bill does. It's pretty simple. It's a cost recovery bill to prevent siphoning off money from those important programs. I urge and I vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Good afternoon. Kula Koenig with the American Heart Association and American Stroke Association. We are in strong support of this bill because it addresses a problem that has existed for far too long. the Board of Equalization does not have adequate funding to cover the costs of running the tobacco licensing program. According to the Legislative Analyst's Office, from 2005 to 2014, annual expenditures averaged $7 million more than annual fee revenue. The report noted that for the 2013 to 2014 year, it cost approximately $10 million to run the program, while revenue remained stagnant around $2 million. So by adjusting the fee structure as this bill proposes, the Board of Equalization would generate approximately $11 million per the analysis the Appropriations Committee put out. This $11 million will equip the organization with the resources it needs to prevent untaxed distribution and illegal sales of cigarettes and tobacco. As Senator Bell mentioned, the BOE has stated that without the proper resources, the organization would have a difficult time discouraging tax evasion, which could result in decreased revenues for the funds. They also noted that lack of ability to enforce could jeopardize California's master settlement agreement payments if it is determined that California is not diligently enforcing its cigarette and tobacco product statutes. The bill simply asks tobacco retailers, wholesalers, and distributors to pay for the cost of doing business in the state of California. According to the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, other licenses, such as a state liquor license for stores that sell beer, wine, and spirits, have an origination fee of $13,000 and an annual renewal fee of $582. This is a fair and fiscally responsible public policy. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you.
Chair and members, Autumn Ogden with American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, also in strong support of Senate Bill 10. As mentioned, this will fund the backfill of $7 million that has been siphoned off from critical programs. In 2006, the legislature approved a budget proposal allowing the BOE to fill the funding gap by siphoning from the four funding sources that receive money from the excise taxes, this being the General Fund, the Breast Cancer Fund, Proposition 10, and Proposition 99, which is the Tobacco Control Program. The money being diverted funds these critical programs which support tobacco education, prevention, tobacco-related disease research, health care for low-income persons, and childhood development. The Tobacco Control Program is already underfunded and is currently only receiving 17% of the CDC's recommended funding. By allowing the BOE to continue to divert the tobacco excise tax revenue to cover the shortfall, we deplete the life-saving programs, and for these reasons, we support SB 10. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Sawait Siem on behalf of Health Access California, and for the reasons mentioned by my colleagues here, we are in support of this bill.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Sylvia Solis Shaw on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Solano County in support.
Megan Allred on behalf of the California Dental Association in support.
Juan Thomas on behalf of the California Medical Association in support.
Lindsay Freitas with the American Lung Association in California in support.
Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
We don't have a position on this bill, but we do note that the Board of Equalization estimates that the fee increase proposed in this bill would generate an additional $12 million in fee revenue annually, which would more than make up for a $7 million shortfall to the program. We also believe that it would result in minor costs to the BOE based on a delayed operative date of January 1, 2017. Should the operative date remain January 1, 2016 as proposed by the bill, BOE thinks that it will have insufficient time to implement the provisions.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing and hearing none, there is a motion by Senator Hill. Secretary, please call the roll. The motion is due pass to the Senate floor.
Lara? Aye. Lara, aye. Bates? Bates, no. Bell? Aye. Bell, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mendoza, aye. Nielsen? Nielsen, no.
5-2, this item is out. Members, we are still in the second extraordinary session. We're going to bring up those items that are currently on call, beginning with Senator Leno's item, SB X2, number 5. That is a due pass as amended to the Senate floor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mendoza, aye.
5-2, this item is out. Next, we have SB X2, number 7, by Senator Hernandez. That is a due pass motion to the Senate floor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Leyva? Aye. Leyva, I. Mendoza? Mendoza, I.
5-2, this item is out. Moving on to SBX2, number 8, Senator Liu, that's a due pass recommendation as amended to the Senate floor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Bates? Leyva? Leyva, I. Mendoza? Mendoza, I. Nielsen?
5-0, that item is out. That concludes all our items in the second extraordinary session. So we're going to move back to our regular committee session. Members, we're going to bring up again those items that are on call, beginning with AB 1432 by Senator Bonta. That's a due pass recommendation to the Senate floor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Bell? Bell, I.
6-1, this item is out.
Be kind as open the roll on SB 8, Lou. I was not paying attention. I wanted to be on the roll on that.
On SB 8?
I believe it was the most recent we called, wasn't that SB 8, Lou?
Senator, we've closed the roll on that item and cannot go back. I apologize for that. The vote on 1432 is 6-1. Yes. Okay, members, we're moving to AB 1042 by Assemblymember Cooper. This is a due pass recommendation to the Senate floor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Bell? Bell, I. Mendoza? Mendoza, I.
7-0, this item is out. Members, we're going to move on now to continue to work the file, beginning with AB 68, Assemblywoman Waldron. Witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Finance.
We don't have a position on this bill. We note that it would result in additional costs to the Department of Healthcare Services as it requires extensive updating of regulations, plan contracts, auditing tools, and the notice of action form in order to conform to the urgent appeal and 24-hour time frame imposed by the measure. We're still looking into the potential impact on drug spending by Medi-Cal plans.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, we move this item to the suspense file. Moving on to AB 69, Rodriguez. Witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
The Department of Justice and Highway Patrol indicate no significant fiscal impact as a result of this bill.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, we'll move this item to a suspense file. Moving on to Assemblymember Pereira's items, beginning with AB 156. Witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
No file on the item. Members, questions or comments from committee? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, we will move this item to a suspense fund. Suspense file, not fund. AB 857. Witnesses in support. Come on down. Please proceed.
I go first. Hi, my name is Laura Santos. I'm here on behalf of Antonio Gonzalez, president of the William C. Velasquez Institute, a nonpartisan national Latino-focused public policy organization in Los Angeles. Despite California's high air quality standards, public health data shows an alarming increase in respiratory ailments and cancer. Children suffer from asthma at a higher rate than ever. Southern California is an entry port for 40% of the nation's imports. Thousands of trucks distribute pollution as well as good to our communities. A large portion of truck drivers are Latino who would love to but cannot purchase heavy-duty electrical trucks as they are currently not available. LA Port has a backlog of 9,000 heavy diesel duty diesel trucks that need to be replaced given recent enacted green policies. The win-win solution is AB 857, the Clean Truck Act. It's a common sense short and midterm remedy. They are near zero emissions. With increased use of renewables, AB 857 will lead to 50% GHG reductions. WCVI respectfully recommends that in the interest of effective policies that bring substantial cleaner air to our working communities and community of color, that this committee remove AB 857 from the suspense and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair and members. I'm Roger Schwecke, Vice President, Customer Solutions for Southern California Gas Company. We believe that the bill as put forth today can be implemented by ARB with significantly no cost. They are currently managing activities very similar to that today and will be on a going forward basis. So we believe that there will not be significant costs. With the environmental benefits of this bill to convert, diesel trucks to natural gas with low emissions, we believe you can get a 90% reduction in NOx emissions, which is the same as a power plant equivalent, the most cleanest power plant today. Probably those power plants that would be in the future used to generate power to charge batteries. So with that, along with the greenhouse gas emissions reductions that these trucks can achieve to the 50% level, we do believe, and we would urge your favorable consideration as you look to all the bills that are sitting on the suspense file today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Tim Carmichael with the California Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition. Strongly support the bill. We think ARB's cost estimates are overstated, and we appreciate the chair's efforts in the past on truck incentives and in the current program in trying to refine this legislation as it moves forward. Thank you.
Additional witnesses to support, or we can have you come up front.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Kenny on behalf of our company, Clean Energy, and two of our trade associations, the Coalition for Renewable Natural Gas and also the Bioenergy Association of California. We are in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Chairman, first let me just say that it's an honor to watch you at work. On behalf of the 100,000 residents who you represent in the city of Southgate, we thank you for your service. My name is Jorge Morales. I'm the mayor of the city of Southgate. I'm here in support of AB 857. I'm also here on behalf of 11 elected officials, the mayors of the city of Commerce, Fontana, Maywood, Monterey Park, Pomona, San Fernando, and council members from Downey, El Monte, Linwood, Montebello, and Pico Rivera in support of AB 857. The city of Southgate, as I mentioned, has 100,000 residents, and 710, which is the artery of the Port of Long Beach, goes straight through our city. And having these vehicles, having this incentive to provide for these trucks, clean energy trucks, would be a benefit to our great city. I grew up with asthma. I have a 9-month-old baby. I had to live with this every single day, and my hope is that my child, Santiago, who Ricardo, Senator Lara, doesn't have to live with this same ailment. On behalf of the residents and my son, I ask for your support on AB 857.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to Sacramento.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lara, committee members, I am Gabriel Puelna, Executive Director of Plaza Community Services, representing the areas of Boyle Heights, East Los Angeles, and significant amount of Southeast Los Angeles. Plaza has approximately 800 children that we service every single day through Head Start and state child care services. AB 857 will significantly, in our opinion, decrease health hazards and increase the availability of quality health in our communities that have a significant amount of freeways going through them. We urge support. Thank you.
Witnesses in support.
Sylvia Solis on behalf of the Board of Supervisors for the counties of Kern, Madera, Tulare, and on behalf of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District in support.
Hi, I'm Terry Griffin with Mothers of East Los Angeles, and a lot of our membership is in your district, Mr. Senator Lara.
My mother's one of those mothers in East LA, too.
On behalf of Mothers of East Los Angeles, we respectfully urge you to support AB 857. Mothers of East Los Angeles formed as a nonprofit corporation serving East Los Angeles residents on environmental justice issues. Since our inception in 1985, Mothers of East Los Angeles have advocated for a better quality of life in our community. AB 857 will be crucial to improving the air quality by creating incentives for heavy-duty truck purchasers to help buy down the initial cost of the vehicle. The bill will help California truckers purchase new, very low-emission trucks, which will help accelerate the retirement of the older, high-polluting trucks. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Frank Villalobos with Resurrection Parish. I'm also in strong support of the bill.
You know, my little brother went to Resurrection.
I know.
I'm sure you do. That's why you're here.
That's why I mentioned it.
And my parents are parishioners at Resurrection Church. The irony is great.
Noted.
Say hello to Father John for us.
Thank you, Senator.
Any additional witnesses in support?
Hi, my name is Kirby Van Amberg, and I'm with Care Clinic. We operate 2 community clinics that serve low-income residents of Metro Los Angeles, and we're in strong support of the bill, as it will have a direct, significant, immediate impact upon the air quality and health, especially for families and children living along the transportation corridors in LA.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Robinson on behalf of the California Transit Association. We fundamentally agree with what this bill sets out to do, which is improve the air quality impacts of our freight networks. That being said, I think the analysis that was done by the committee staff rightly points out that when you set that threshold at $100 million of what must come out of the 1204 program, our bus manufacturers throughout the state and those transit systems that rely on those buses are impacted. Their share goes down on the amount of money they have access to. Transit systems are often the implementers of the technology. We usually run it first for 10 or 12 years, and then if it works, it's passed on to the trucking industry, and then they use it. So with that, I think with the removal of the $100 million, we could probably be in an okay place in this bill, but right now we must remain opposed with that in there.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition?
Hello, Urvashi Nagani on behalf of Motive Power System. I'm here speaking on behalf of Motive Power Systems, and we electrify mid to heavy duty size vehicles. We're based in Senator Hill's district, and our manufacturing facility is across the bay in a disadvantaged part of Hayward, California, in Senator Wachowski's district. We have very strong opposition to AB 857. Our concern is on multiple points. One is that the carve-out removes funding from the already defined investment plan. The annual investment plan is developed with a great deal of transparency, industry stakeholders, community stakeholders, and sets the priority down to every single project that is included in that funding bucket. When you have a carve-out of this size, you're not only going to put money in one place, you're going to remove it from 3 or 4 other places. So in doing so, they're going to substantially impact how much confidence we have in the investment plan, not only this year, but going forward. The CARB and CEC do a wonderful job of making an investment plan that goes from research and development and pilot stage deployments into larger scale deployments that can demonstrate the technology at a point of pre-commercial viability, so that when it is done with that pipeline, you have a market-ready technology that doesn't need further support. Right now, if you take that money away from it, you're taking technologies that the state has already invested in and removing the assistance they need prior to them having commercial viability. So there's going to be an impact to that level. Furthermore, the fiscal impact recognizes only the immediate costs to AB 857. It doesn't recognize the damage that would happen to the electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, and other vehicles that would not necessarily get funding under this bill. The other thing about this bill, which is that when you fund only heavy-duty vehicle technology, you don't recognize the fact that medium-duty vehicles tend to be the gateway towards those heavier-duty vehicles. Motive Power Systems builds an electronic powertrain in Hayward, and the same manufacturing facility that builds the components for a medium-duty all-electric school bus also builds the components necessary for a heavy-duty all-electric refuse truck, the heaviest such electrical vehicle in the United States today. Now, those vehicles, the cost of components is based upon the economy of scale. When you cut your funding for medium-duty vehicles, you're inherently making those more expensive, not only for the medium-duty, but also to the heavy-duty sector. When you take a vehicle such as an electric refuse truck, which you're going to have over a $700,000 sticker price on, you're going to get far fewer vehicles on the road for a larger sum of money. Finally, most importantly, this bill goes, the governor's recent executive order B3215, Sustainable Freight, establishes a mandate under which all of the agencies in California must work together to develop a pipeline for sustainable freight and transit corridors. What this bill seeks to do is doing independently and at the cost of investment plans, and what all of these agencies will have to do by 2016 is have a unified plan that will address the bill's concern. I strongly urge a no vote on AB 857 for these reasons.
Thank you. Any additional witnesses in opposition? Finance.
The Department of Finance is opposed to this bill for several reasons, including the concern noted about carving out this program from the investment plan process. We would say that this bill is premature prior to future budget discussions surrounding the GGRF program. As you know, the Budget Act of 2015 did not include a cap-and-trade expenditure plan, and those discussions have been deferred till hopefully sometime before the end of session. The bill requires the GGRF to be used to fund a portion of the low-carbon transportation program, even though the 15-16 budget process is not complete on that issue. We think that this measure should be considered along with all other proposals for GGRF appropriations during the upcoming budget discussions. The State Air Resources Board indicates they would need 5 positions and $844,000 in order to begin implementing this program. The 2015 May revision proposed $350 million for the low-carbon transportation program, which includes funds for clean trucks, buses, and off-road vehicles and equipment. And this bill would direct 50% of that revenue outside of the budget process.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing and hearing none, I do want to make a statement, given that the supporters of this bill brought all my friends, including... I'm surprised my mother and father aren't here. I do want to say just a statement on this issue. You know, natural gas is an important transitional fuel, but we also need to use these funds to continue to push technologies forward for the development of commercially available zero-emission vehicles in a wide range of weight classes. You know, my bill, AB 1204, in which I identified the funding source and worked with the administration to actually obtain the monies to be able to get us to that goal. I want to make sure that there is funding available to other valuable eligible uses under the Clean Truck and Bus Off-Road Vehicle Equipment Technology Program, which I helped create. In addition to heavy-duty trucks, what our mayor from Southgate explained is a real problem. My fear is that if we invest so much money in just natural gas, then we get stuck in natural gas, which we know that there's also NOx issues surrounded with that. And so I also want to make sure that we reasonably administer the fueling requirements in the bill and ensure that we are going to receive an anticipated GHG and criteria pollutant emissions reduction, which is our overall goal in this issue. And as finance appropriately noted, this program is funded through the GGRF funds. We also need to look at how the GGRF funds are also looked at amongst the other bills that are dealing to seek money from this fund. We also need to look at how this program is going to fit together with the GGRF priorities that both houses are looking at. Also, ensuring that we have a broader discussion about the real lifeline of these trucks. What happens during the first iteration can change drastically when they reach the second owner's hands, where we know these trucks can be out for 20 to 30 years, and even after that, they end up in most likely in Mexico, where we recently just had a trip, and a lot of the Mexican officials are struggling with the fact that these older trucks, older vehicles are ending up across the border again, contributing to the environmental issues down south. So if we're going to really work towards a more global solution, we need to have a better integrated program. So we'll look forward to looking at this bill and continuing to work on these issues as this bill is in the suspense file. So without objection, we'll move this item to suspense. Senator Nielsen?
If I may on this point, it's a broad point, but of great concern. The trucking industry, but everybody's been affected. Agriculture very particularly, but those who have diesel engines. But let me be specific to the trucking industry. You made a point about the trucks being dumped in Mexico, and those who have trucks, they have a very, very hard time disposing of those trucks that they've invested very heavily in. And over the years, one of the problems has been, and we call it the diesel retrofit, generally that's what I have called it over the years. The problem with that is there's no end, that they do the retrofit and then the board comes out and tests and says, well, that's not enough, or they say, hey, there's some new technology. I believe that we need some legislation, which I have proposed. I didn't bring it back after being defeated a couple of years ago, but I actually introduced it in the 80s. It says if an agency imposes a technology, say diesel retrofit, then they can't change the rules for 3 to 5 years. I wanted 8, but I'd settle for 3 to 5. That then allows the owner of the truck, the diesel, or many other things, to amortize, to understand when they're going to have enough money to buy another thing and upgrade, and then how to dispose of that. This is just, I'm bringing it to the attention because it's broadly and very important in our continuing debate. And lastly, I'll just have to say, editorially, I do not think the 50% renewable goal that has been proposed is really realistic or attainable, unless the people of the state of California, who I'm looking at out there at the camera, are you willing to drastically change how you live your lives? If you are, maybe then we can attain that. But if you aren't, I believe we're going to have some real problems. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the moment.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. And I think that's the issue when we talk about putting these longer time frames. The technology is moving so quickly now that we want to make sure we get not only the best bang for our buck, and which means that we're doing the most to capture and reduce our carbon footprint, but also understanding what you said, the ability for these truckers, especially, which we know the majority are single truck owners, that give them the opportunity to phase in these technologies. I think that's the balance where we understand when we talk about Senator Pereira's district having some of the worst air quality. The understanding that we need to do something about that. We have to have this kind of balanced approach. My fear is that we get stuck to one technology and that we really don't capture the carbon capture that we want, the real reduction. So I think we need to play all this while we're in suspense, and also look at the broader goals of GGRF and what the administration, Assembly, and Senate leadership are going to agree on in terms of how we're going to spend these monies. So again, members, thank you. And with that, we'll move this item to the suspense file.